So let me get this straight. The movie theaters are closed, and all the big releases coming up in the next few months are delayed. So what am I supposed to talk about? Wait a minute. So as you saw in the intro, I'm not going to be able to cover any movies coming out in theaters because the theaters are closed, and a lot of those movies were delayed anyway. So what I'm going to do is cover all the stuff from streaming services. Well, not all of it, because that's a lot. But I'm going to be covering movies and shows from Disney+, Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime. So if there's something you want to see me talk about, let me know down in the comments. This is the Streaming Chronicles. That's what I'm going to call this series. I guess it's going to be a series. As long as you know what is going on, we're going to be doing this. Today, we are talking about Frozen 2. This movie, I did not get a chance to see in theaters. I was busy with other things, I think, and there were some other movies coming out at the time, so it became like a, which one do I see? Which one do I see? I'll go with this one. And so I never got around to watching it. Disney, being very nice and thinking about what's going on, all these kids home with no school, nothing to do, they decided to release this movie earlier than they were planning on Disney+. So I finally got a chance to watch this movie. Frozen 2 is directed by Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee and stars Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel returning to their roles as Anna and Elsa respectively. This time around, Anna, Elsa, and the gang go on a journey to the Enchanted Forest to take on elemental spirits who seek to destroy Arendelle. The original Frozen came out in 2013, and I remember it vividly. Not because I saw it in theaters, because I also missed out in theaters, but this movie was a juggernaut. Like, it was extremely popular, especially with kids. Long after this movie was in theaters on DVD, people were still talking about it. There were so many Frozen products everywhere. Toilet paper, tissues, fruit snacks, you name it, it had Frozen on it. People were obsessed with Let It Go and Olaf. Like, this was crazy, and it actually got on my nerves. Now, when I finally got to see the movie, this was after the hype train had already gone full steam ahead, and so I had really high expectations going into it because so many people were hyping it up, and then I saw it, and I thought it was just fine. I mean, it wasn't one of the best Disney movies at all. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but I don't think it necessarily lived up to the hype. I saw the trailer for this one, and it looked like they were doing something different and unique, so I was somewhat excited to see where they were going to go with this one. Overall, I thought this one was fine. I liked it slightly better than the last one. I think it had a little bit more original elements, I guess I would say, but at the same time, it still had some of the flaws of the original and some newer problems that did kind of bog it down. So I'm on the fence about this one. Like, I didn't hate it and I didn't love it, but I did like it slightly more than the first one, which I also didn't like that much anyway. So let's get into it. First, I'm going to start off with what I don't think worked in this one, and then I'll explain how that leads into what did work. So, biggest thing that didn't work for me in this movie, because it was basically non-existent, was character development. I think Elsa really got the most to do and the most development in this movie, and pretty much everybody else took a backseat, especially Kristoff. They especially did Kristoff dirty in this one. He really didn't get any story arc whatsoever. Well, he did have an arc, but no development through that arc. I mean, his relationship status changed by the end, let's say that, but otherwise, his character did not really change that much. That also goes the same for Anna. In this movie, she kind of got on my nerves a little bit. She did have some cool stuff to do towards the end, but a lot of this movie was about her being overprotective of Elsa, who is a superpowered individual who is extremely OP, but then Anna still treats her like she can't handle herself, which was kind of weird. The first half, I was totally cool with the overprotective thing. Like, all right, I get it. I understand because of all the stuff that happened in the last movie. But by the second half, I was like, all right, come on. She has superpowers. She can handle herself. Let her do what she needs to do. And eventually she did, but it still got on my nerves a little bit. Olaf and Sven, they were just kind of there. They really didn't do much. Olaf was kind of a comic relief, but not all of the jokes are funny. I mean, he does have some observational humor, and this running joke is that he's a child still, even though he's a fully formed being. Like, he's a snowman, so he really doesn't age necessarily, but the whole joke is that he's only technically been alive for a small amount of time, so he's still discovering things about the world. But for me, that wasn't the funniest thing about it. Like, I wasn't really a huge fan of Olaf going into this, but even still, I don't think they added that much to his character. The other thing that didn't work that much for me was music, and I know this one's going to be controversial. Now, there were a couple, no, I would say like maybe 3 or 4 songs that I think were good. But overall, I feel like a lot of the songs didn't necessarily fit in the moments that they were used. There are moments where characters broke out into song, and I thought, do you need to be singing right now? Shouldn't you be handling this, or shouldn't you be avoiding this? But they start singing, and this movie just comes to a screeching halt for this musical number. And sometimes in musicals, the music can give story points, which the beginning part of the movie, the song does kind of tell a little bit of a story. But there's other times where they're just singing for the sake of singing, and I was like, eh. But I think there's definitely some really great vocal performances, especially Idina Menzel. She has like 2 or 3 really big songs in this one, and she kills all of them. I heard the song Into the Unknown actually for the first time at the Oscars when they did it live with her and all the other actresses from around the world that had voiced Elsa. That was really cool. But seeing it in the movie, I really did like the song. So that was definitely a highlight. But all the other songs to me were just okay. And lastly, the story. It was interesting and it was a little more original than the last one, but I do think that there were moments where I really questioned the logic of what was happening. I was really sitting there wondering, wait, why did this character do this? Why didn't they do this? Why didn't this person tell them this from the beginning and avoid all this other stuff? Moments like that for me did kind of ruin the story for me because it just made me question it more. Now, I won't lie, I was entertained by certain things, but it did just leave me with a lot of questions. All right, and now what did work? These for me were redeeming qualities where at first, if it was just those other things that happened, I would have thought this movie was just eh. But I do think some of these things sort of elevated it for me. One of those things being the action. Elsa had some really dope scenes in this movie. You see her fighting the elementals, the spirits, one-on-one, using her ice powers, and it leads to some really great visuals and choreography, I guess you could call it. They use really cool particle effects to make these effects really pop. So visually, I really loved what I was seeing on screen. Secondly, Idina Menzel, like I said, her music, her voice in this is really great. She's really hitting some really high notes, really strong, long notes. I'm like, bruh, how can anybody sing along to this? It's crazy. But she absolutely killed it in the music department. And lastly, even though the music was kind of in parts and some of the story points didn't make sense, I do think I ultimately had a good time. The intro to the movie, the first half where they're really explaining the lore and stuff, I thought that was really interesting. It's just towards the second half, certain things got kind of bogged down by either music or logistical problems. But I did like the story, at least the setup for it, and where it was potentially going to go. And then the conclusion did sort of make sense, but there are some parts that were kind of predictable, moments where I thought, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I saw that coming. But I do think kids are definitely going to love it, and parents are going to love it. So if you are stuck inside and you have nothing to watch, I do think this one is worth watching at home with your kids, with your family. It's something nice. It's not top tier Disney, but I do think it's worth checking out. The verdict. I think Frozen 2 is a great time. Again, it's not one of the best movies. I do think it's slightly better than Frozen 2 in my opinion, again, because I was not a huge fan of the first one anyway, but it's definitely not one of the top Disney movies in my book. So, have you seen Frozen 2? You probably have, because I'm doing this super late. What did you think about it? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more streaming videos. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.